What if the future isn't the safe, predictable world you've been told to expect, but a storm already written in forgotten prophecies? What if voices from deep trance sessions, gathered by Dolores Cannon, align with the shocking Edgar Cayce Earth changes that warned of coastlines vanishing, cities sinking, and new lands rising from the ocean floor? These aren't random predictions. They are fragments of a larger puzzle, visions of the Shift 2025, a global spiritual awakening that promises the birth of a new Earth prophecy, but only after waves of karmic cleansing and geologic upheaval. Imagine the USA coast prophecy unfolding, the West Coast trembling under earthquakes, the East Coast drowning under sudden floods, while secret forces beneath the Bermuda Triangle activate long-lost Atlantis energy grids and crystal technology Atlantis. Even Europe is not spared. Prophecies whisper of northern lands swallowed by water, Mediterranean volcanoes roaring back to life, and safe zones hidden in the east. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll discover a revelation almost no one dares to talk about. And it might just change how you prepare for the Consciousness Shift 2025. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because what you're about to hear feels like a secret prophecy docu. The visions we're about to explore didn't come from speculation, conspiracy forums, or random guesses. They were gathered from decades of meticulous research, hundreds of deep trance hypnosis sessions, and the urgent warnings delivered in the final years of Dolores Cannon's predictions. Through her method of quantum healing hypnosis, she accessed layers of the human subconscious where timeless information could be retrieved, what she called the superconscious mind. And what poured through those sessions wasn't only about personal healing or past lives, it was about our planet, our societies, and a coming transformation unlike anything humanity has ever faced. Cannon's work repeatedly emphasized that the world is on the brink of the Shift 2025. She described it as a global spiritual awakening, an event that would birth the long-foretold New Earth prophecy. But she warned us not to romanticize it. Too often, people cling to utopian images of light, peace, and unity, forgetting that birth is always preceded by contractions. The transition to a higher vibrational frequency safety doesn't happen in silence. It shakes systems, destabilizes the familiar, and cracks open the old so the new can rise. This is why her later work reads almost like a prophecy documentary style, offering precise warnings not just in metaphysical terms, but in physical, geographic detail. Her sessions began to highlight specific nations, coastlines, and regions, especially the United States and Western Europe, as epicenters of the coming Earth changes. It was as if the Earth itself had scheduled a karmic reset, a karmic cleansing, targeting the very places where ancient energies had long been out of balance. At this point, skeptics might ask, why the USA and why Europe? According to Cannon, the answer lies in a planetary rebalancing act. These lands carry heavy karmic imprints, rooted in centuries of conquest, technological misuse, and forgotten ancient experiments. The echoes of Atlantis energy grids and crystal technology Atlantis still hum beneath our oceans, especially near the Bermuda Triangle secrets, waiting to be triggered by shifts in frequency. What Cayce once described as the misuse of Atlantean power now ripples into the present, demanding release. And this is where the connection with Edgar Cayce Earth changes becomes undeniable. Long before Cannon, Cayce's readings warned that traumatic upheavals would shake the Western world. He spoke of coastlines vanishing, of Japan sinking, of Europe being transformed in the blink of an eye. He specifically named regions of the United States, New York, California, Los Angeles, San Francisco that would face devastating shifts. Dolores Cannon's hypnotized subjects, decades later, echoed these same images almost word for word, as if reading from the same cosmic script. But here's the paradox she always emphasized. These visions aren't absolute sentences carved in stone. They are warnings, much like a weather forecast. The storm clouds are gathering. Yes, but how fiercely they'll break depends on us, on our choices, and most importantly, on our collective vibration. If humanity embraces spiritual preparedness, if we raise our frequency, we might soften the blow or even alter the outcome entirely. Yet if we remain trapped in fear, greed, and denial, we may magnetize the very disasters we dread. Think of it this way. Prophecy is like a fork in the road. The map shows multiple possible outcomes, but the route humanity takes depends on the energy we feed into the system. This is why Cannon insisted that preparation is both outer and inner. Stockpiles and safe zones matter. Yes, her sessions revealed details about safe zones. USA prophecy and Europe flooding prophecy. But she was clear. The true sanctuary is vibrational. No matter where you live, it's your consciousness that decides whether you stand in chaos or in safety. So, as we step deeper into this exploration, remember this. The story of the future isn't about blind fear or passive acceptance. It's about choosing to engage in the Consciousness Shift 2025 with clarity, courage, and responsibility. And yet, there's a detail hidden in these warnings that almost no one dares to mention. A clue that ties the fate of continents to the forgotten mistakes of Atlantis. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could change the way you see the very ground beneath your feet. When we move deeper into the archives of Dolores Cannon predictions, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore: the level of specificity. These weren't vague statements that could be twisted to fit any future. No, her sessions described exact regions, coastlines, and even the fates of individual cities. Combined with the earlier Edgar Cayce Earth changes, the narrative begins to feel less like scattered visions and more like a carefully orchestrated warning. She spoke of the United States and Western Europe as two of the most significant arenas for transformation. Not because they are the only places that matter, but because they hold the densest karmic imprints and the strongest links to ancient misuse of crystal technology Atlantis. It's as if these regions became pressure points on the planet, destined to release their energy during the Shift 2025. In the United States, 3 zones stand out. On the West Coast, subjects under hypnosis spoke of mountains trembling, coastlines breaking, and an unstoppable chain of quakes that would ripple from California up toward the Pacific Northwest. They described a West Coast earthquake prediction, where cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles would suffer not from a single apocalyptic event, but from a series of escalating shocks that would erode their infrastructure and scatter their populations. What makes this even more chilling is that Cayce foresaw the same outcome decades earlier. He warned of land sliding into the sea and great population centers being wiped away. On the East Coast, the visions became even more dramatic. East Coast flooding emerged as a recurring theme. Cannon's sessions revealed New York City submerged, with skyscrapers jetting out of the ocean like gravestones of a lost civilization. Florida appeared fragmented, parts of its landmass vanishing under rising seas. Some descriptions linked this to the activation of hidden crystalline structures beneath the Bermuda Triangle secrets. According to subjects, these Atlantean devices dormant for thousands of years would awaken in resonance with the planet's rising vibration, unleashing energy fields that destabilized the Atlantic coast. And then there was the safe zone. Multiple sessions pointed to the central United States, the plains, and the Rocky Mountains as areas of relative stability, the heartland that would become a refuge for survivors. This aligned directly with the safe zone's USA prophecy, where new communities would gather, guided not by fear, but by a renewed sense of purpose. But Cannon's warning was clear. Even these zones were not immune. Rivers would swell, elevations would shift, and only those prepared in both body and spirit could thrive. Western Europe faced an equally dramatic script. Subjects spoke of the British Isles shrinking, the North Sea swallowing portions of Scandinavia, and coastal cities disappearing in sudden surges. These visions matched the Europe flooding prophecy, echoing Cayce's warning that entire nations could change in the twinkling of an eye. The Mediterranean was described as a cauldron of volcanic activity, with Vesuvius and Etna roaring to life, reshaping coastlines and even altering the sea itself. The land trembled, but the deeper message was spiritual. Ancient energies of domination, war, and patriarchal control would be washed away, making space for a resurgence of feminine energy long suppressed. At first glance, these visions might sound catastrophic. And yes, they describe cataclysms of staggering magnitude. But remember, both Cannon and Case emphasized that these weren't punishments. They were part of a planetary rebalancing, a karmic cleansing designed to reset the energy grid of Earth. Just as your body shakes with fever to burn out illness, so too does the planet tremble and flood to release what no longer serves. The astonishing part is how often these prophecies converged. Independent hypnosis subjects described the same maps being redrawn, new lakes forming in America's interior, parts of Europe vanishing, new lands rising in the Pacific. When layered over Case's maps of future Earth changes, the overlaps were eerie. It was as if two different messengers, decades apart, were sketching the same vision of tomorrow. But here's the twist that most people overlook. Cannon insisted that geography was not the final word. She said, "The map of the future is written in vibration, not in stone." That means the spiritual preparedness of humanity, our willingness to anchor higher love and unity, could bend the outcome. Yes, coastlines might shift. Yes, some cities may face crisis. But the severity, the timing, and even the scale can still be influenced by the collective. So when you hear these prophecies, don't only picture collapsing buildings and raging seas. Picture also the invisible energy fields at play. Imagine the Atlantis energy grid flickering awake beneath the Atlantic. See the shimmering light of crystal technology Atlantis humming back into resonance. Envision ordinary people standing on shifting ground but radiating calm, repeating the mantra of the I am the calm in the storm movement, becoming living anchors of stability in unstable times. And just when you think this is all ancient mythology recycled into modern fear, consider this. Subjects under hypnosis, people with no prior knowledge of esoteric teachings, describe scenes that align almost perfectly with both Case's readings and modern geological speculation. Is this coincidence? Or is it the voice of the earth itself, whispering through the subconscious, pleading with us to pay attention before it's too late? The truth is, every prophecy carries a choice. We can dismiss it, mock it, and carry on as if nothing is coming. Or we can heed the warnings, not with panic, but with preparation, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And as you'll see in a moment, the metaphysical reason behind these upheavals runs far deeper than shifting tectonic plates. It stretches back thousands of years to the forgotten legacy of Atlantis. If you've ever wondered why these dramatic earth changes appear in both ancient and modern prophecies, the answer lies in the idea of rebalancing a planetary reset written into the very fabric of existence. According to Dolores Cannon predictions, what we're witnessing is not random chaos, but the natural process of karmic cleansing. Just as individuals carry karmic imprints from their past lives, nations, continents, and even civilizations carry collective karma that must eventually be balanced. Think about it. Humanity has spent millennia building societies on top of unresolved wombs wars, colonization, misuse of power, and exploitation of natural resources. Energetically, those wounds don't simply vanish. They linger in the vibrational field of the earth itself. This is why both Cannon and Edgar Cayce earth changes speak of cataclysms as a form of healing. The planet is not punishing us. It is realigning itself, releasing pressure built over thousands of years, much like a body sweating out toxins during a fever. And the most astonishing part? These changes aren't only geological, they're multidimensional. Beneath the quakes and floods lies an energetic story tied to forgotten civilizations. According to Cannon, the misuse of crystal technology Atlantis destabilized not only their world, but left an energetic scar still reverberating today. Their grids, their energy experiments, and their arrogance in trying to control nature left fractures in the planetary field. Those fractures must be healed during the Shift 2025. This is why the Atlantis energy grid and the infamous Bermuda Triangle secrets emerge so often in both hypnotherapy sessions and channelings. The same energy that once powered cities of light has been dormant, waiting for the frequency shift that humanity is now approaching. As our collective vibration rises, those dormant systems flicker awake, not always harmoniously. Imagine a forgotten nuclear reactor suddenly powering back on after millennia of silence. That's the scale of what some of Cannon's subjects described. From this perspective, the flooding of Europe or the earthquakes along the U.S. coasts are not accidents. They're releases, purges, and resets. New Earth prophecy teachings remind us that in order for new land, new societies, and new frequencies to rise, the old must crumble. This doesn't mean that humanity is doomed. Quite the opposite. It means we are being offered the chance to rise with the planet, to cleanse our own karmic debts alongside the Earth's. But what does karmic cleansing actually look like? On an individual level, it might manifest as sudden challenges, relationships breaking, careers collapsing, health crises emerging. All of these are opportunities to clear unresolved energy. On a planetary scale, karmic cleansing looks like storms, quakes, and volcanoes, events that shake loose stagnant vibrations, forcing renewal. Both scales mirror each other. As above, so below. This is why spiritual preparedness becomes essential. If you see these changes only as disasters, you may drown in fear. But if you see them as a mirror of transformation, you can shift your vibration into alignment with the Earth's healing. And that's where the idea of vibrational frequency safety comes in. Cannon's work made it clear. Your true safe zone isn't marked on a map, it's encoded in your frequency. Those who hold love, compassion, and trust radiate stability, even in unstable environments. Those trapped in panic and despair magnetize danger, even if they live in supposedly safe zones. Now, let's consider Europe. According to multiple sessions, the flooding of the north and the volcanic activity of the Mediterranean were not punishments, but releases of ancient energies. The north carried the weight of patriarchal systems of war and domination. The Mediterranean carried the suppressed energies of the feminine, once honored in goddess cultures, later buried under conquest. The quakes and floods were symbolic as well as physical, a sweeping away of imbalance, a reawakening of what was silenced. In the United States, the karmic weight lies in its global role as a technological and political powerhouse. From military dominance to corporate greed, the karmic debts are heavy. Yet the same land also carries the seeds of renewal. The safe zones use a prophecy, pointed to the heartland as a cradle for a new society, one built not on conquest, but on cooperation. Isn't it interesting that the very center of the country, often overlooked, becomes the ground zero for rebirth? So, when we hear about maps being redrawn, we must remember the lines of coastlines and mountains are less important than the lines of frequency we choose to inhabit. Every prophecy is a chance to shift course. And the Consciousness Shift 2025 is not only about surviving floods or earthquakes, it's about remembering who we are in the face of upheaval. Picture this. The ground shakes, the ocean rises, the sky darkens, and yet in the middle of it all, a group of people stand calm, radiating light, repeating the mantra of the I am the calm in the storm movement. They are not naive. They are aligned. Their vibration becomes a beacon, anchoring safety not only for themselves, but for everyone around them. This is what Cannon meant when she said the future is vibrational, not geographical. And here's the truth that few dare to face. These earth changes are not a threat to fear, but an invitation to evolve. They are the birth pains of a new earth, urging us to shed the old skins of greed, fear, and separation, and step into unity, compassion, and higher awareness. But what happens when the prophecies of Atlantis, Case, and Cannon all converge? The answer reveals the true scope of this shift stretching across thousands of years of human history. Stay with me, because up next, we'll dive into the astonishing connections between Edgar Cayce Earth changes and Cannon's late-stage revelations. And that connection might just prove that prophecy is less about prediction and more about remembering. Long before Dolores Cannon predictions captured the imagination of spiritual seekers, another voice echoed with uncanny warnings about the future. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet. In deep trance states, Cayce delivered thousands of readings, many of them focused on future Earth changes. His descriptions, given decades before Cannon began her hypnosis work, are so strikingly similar that one has to ask, were they both tuning into the same universal record, the same layer of universal knowledge that preserves the timeline of the Earth? Cayce foresaw coastlines vanishing, continents shifting, and cities drowning beneath the sea. He described how the western coast of the United States would break apart under massive geological strain, a West Coast earthquake prediction so vivid that researchers still debate its accuracy today. He warned that New York and the eastern seaboard would face devastation through rising waters, aligning directly with modern discussions of East Coast flooding. He even went so far as to say, the Earth will be broken up in the western portion of America. The greater portion of Japan must go into the sea. The upper portion of Europe will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. At the time, many dismissed these visions as impossible. Yet as decades passed, scientific concerns about fault lines, melting ice caps, and rising seas began to echo Cayce's warnings. What was once prophecy now reads like a chilling geological forecast. And when Dolores Cannon's predictions began to surface from her deep trance sessions, the parallels became undeniable. Her subjects, under hypnosis, often described images eerily similar to Cayce's. Entire coastlines of the United States redrawn. The USA coast prophecy unfolding like a living map, California trembling, Florida submerged, New York underwater. They spoke of Europe's northern countries swallowed by the sea, a Europe flooding prophecy, almost word for word what Cayce had outlined. How could two people, separated by decades and methodologies, describe the same visions unless they were tapping into the same Akashic records of Earth itself? One of the most fascinating overlaps lies in the concept of Atlantis. Cayce often spoke of the return of Atlantean technologies, especially crystals, as both a blessing and a danger. He predicted that evidence of Atlantis would rise again, that its energy grids would reactivate, and that humanity would face the karmic consequences of its past misuse. Cannon's work directly echoed this. Her sessions repeatedly highlighted the Atlantis energy grid and the awakening of crystal technology Atlantis as triggers for the coming changes. Both seers suggested that what humanity failed to learn in the past must be faced again in the present. But here's the paradox. Neither Cayce nor Cannon claimed these outcomes were fixed. They both emphasized that prophecy is like a weather forecast. Yes, storms may be forming, but human consciousness, our choices, our spiritual preparedness can shift the outcome. For Cayce, prayer and spiritual alignment were keys to safety. For Cannon, raising one's vibration, aligning with love, and joining the I am the calm in the storm movement offered protection. In different words, they both pointed to the same truth. The map of the future is drawn in vibration, not in stone. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine you're standing on the beach, watching the horizon. You know a storm is coming. You can smell it in the air, feel it in the wind. That's what Cayce and Cannon were trying to tell us. The clouds are gathering. The waves are rising. But whether that storm destroys or transforms depends on how humanity responds. Cayce also spoke of safe zones, areas less affected by upheaval. He pointed to portions of the American Midwest and Appalachia as places of relative stability, resonating later with the safe zones USA prophecy revealed in Cannon's sessions. Both suggested that while coastlines may vanish, the heartland would serve as a cradle for a new society, a gathering place for those ready to rebuild in alignment with higher principles. Even more intriguing are the timelines. Case spoke of massive changes beginning in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, and Cannon's subjects often emphasized the shift 2025 as a pivotal moment of transformation. Though dates can be fluid in prophecy, the overlap creates a sense of urgency. We're no longer speaking about some distant, hypothetical future. We are living in the window both seers identified. Now, let's address the skeptics. Some argue that these prophecies feed fear, that they distract from practical solutions to climate change or geological instability. But both Case and Cannon urged the opposite. They insisted that fear magnetizes danger, while love, unity, and higher awareness create safety. That's why they repeatedly emphasized vibrational frequency safety, the idea that no matter where you are, your state of consciousness is the true determinant of survival and growth. In this sense, their prophecies weren't just warnings. They were invitations. Invitations to align with a higher path, to see the upheavals not as punishments, but as opportunities. Invitations to let go of greed, war, and separation, and to step into the collective birth of a spiritual awakening. And here's a question worth pondering. If two of the most famous prophetic voices of the last century describe the same future, shouldn't we at least listen? Not with blind panic, but with open eyes and open hearts. Because the convergence of Edgar Cayce Earth changes and Dolores Cannon's predictions suggests we are being given not just warnings, but a roadmap. A chance to alter the storm before it breaks. But here's the twist you need to hear. Both Cayce and Cannon hinted at secrets buried even deeper than coastlines and earthquake secrets, tied to the very core of Atlantis and its legacy. Up next, we'll explore how Cannon's subjects revealed the forgotten scars of crystal misuse, scars still pulsing beneath our oceans, waiting to awaken. If the words of Edgar Cayce Earth changes seemed like an isolated voice from the past, the astonishing evidence from Dolores Cannon's predictions proved otherwise. Over 4 decades of deep trance hypnosis sessions, hundreds of ordinary people, most with no knowledge of prophecy, began describing eerily similar visions. They spoke of oceans swallowing coasts, earthquakes fracturing cities, and maps being redrawn before their eyes. The consistency was too striking to dismiss. Cannon herself was stunned by the parallels. Time and time again, subjects slipped into the superconscious state and began to describe the USA coast prophecy in haunting detail. Some saw the West Coast breaking apart, not in one apocalyptic night, but through a series of tremors that weakened infrastructure and forced mass migrations inland. Others described the East Coast flooding, with New York skyscrapers sticking out of the ocean like jagged teeth, Florida partially disappearing, and the Bermuda Triangle secrets activating crystalline forces long buried. One subject even described watching a map change in real time. "I see water rushing over the land," they whispered, "and the lines are moving. The boundaries between earth and ocean are no longer the same." This account was not unique. Dozens of others echoed the same imagery, down to the redrawing of borders between land and sea. Such overlap, coming from people who had never met, gave Cannon confidence that what she was accessing was not imagination. It was a collective record of future earth changes. Equally compelling were the visions of Europe. Subjects consistently mentioned northern lands vanishing beneath water Britain shrinking, Scandinavia fractured. They spoke of the Mediterranean boiling with volcanic activity, Vesuvius and Etna erupting, entire coastlines transformed overnight. And they described Eastern Europe, particularly the Carpathian and Ural Mountains, as relative sanctuaries, a vision directly aligned with the Europe flooding prophecy. But what makes these sessions even more fascinating is the metaphysical context. These weren't just disaster reels. They were lessons in energy. Subjects described the events as part of a larger karmic cleansing, tied to humanity's misuse of crystal technology Atlantis. They insisted the Earth was not simply destroying, but recalibrating, resetting the Atlantis energy grid and rebalancing frequencies that had been out of harmony for thousands of years. One trance subject vividly described crystal structures beneath the Atlantic, saying, "They hum when the vibration rises. They destabilize the water. They remember what was done before, and they release it." For Cannon, this was confirmation that prophecy is not punishment, but the unfolding of energetic law. What humanity created in arrogance must now be healed through upheaval. And yet, a deeper thread runs through these sessions, the reminder that prophecy is fluid. Many subjects insisted the outcomes were not fixed. They said timelines shift according to collective vibration, and that spiritual preparedness could soften or even transform the severity of events. In other words, while the shift 2025 may be inevitable as a consciousness shift 2025, the degree of turbulence along the way remains in our hands. Cannon often explained it with a weather analogy. If a storm is forecast, you can't stop it from forming, but you can choose how you prepare, whether you anchor yourself in fear or align with calm. This is why she emphasized the importance of the I and the calm in the storm movement. By embodying higher vibrations of love and unity, individuals could create pockets of safety even in unsafe zones. Let's pause here. Imagine dozens of people, unrelated, under hypnosis, all describing the same scene. Cities flooding, coasts breaking, mountains standing as safe havens. Then imagine they all emphasize the same solution, not running, not hiding, but shifting vibration. Doesn't that sound less like coincidence and more like a message? Even skeptics who dismiss prophecy must grapple with this. How could so many independent subjects describe nearly identical images? They weren't religious zealots or conspiracy theorists. Many were ordinary men and women seeking healing. And yet, when their subconscious minds opened, the same storyline emerged. Cannon herself often said she felt like a journalist of the subconscious, documenting what poured through with no agenda of her own. She didn't tell subjects what to say. She let them speak. And over time, the mosaic formed, a prophecy documentary-style vision of the future, spanning continents, echoing case, and resonating with geological concerns scientists are only beginning to take seriously. And here's the kicker. Subjects described not only disasters, but also rebirth. They spoke of new societies forming in safe zones U as a prophecy, of communities rising in Eastern Europe, of a planet purified by karmic cleansing and aligned for the new Earth prophecy. They saw not only destruction, but also renewal, reminding us that collapse is only half the story. The other half is creation. The more you listen to these testimonies, the more it feels like Earth itself is speaking through human subconsciousness, pleading with us to pay attention. And when those voices align with cases, with ancient myths of Atlantis, and with the observable cracks in our modern systems, it becomes harder and harder to ignore. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Hidden within these sessions are references to the mechanics of Atlantis itself, to technologies and energy grids that still pulse beneath our oceans. And those secrets, if true, may hold the key to why the Earth is shifting now. Stay with me, because next, we'll uncover how the misuse of Atlantean crystal power set the stage for everything unfolding in our lifetime. To understand why the Earth seems poised for upheaval, we need to look far beyond modern history back to an age half remembered in myth, Atlantis. Both Dolores Cannon predictions and the Edgar Cayce Earth changes place Atlantis at the center of today's planetary rebalancing. According to their combined visions, what we are experiencing now is not new. It is the karmic echo of choices made thousands of years ago. Atlantis was described as a civilization of extraordinary advancement, thriving on the mastery of vibrational energy and the legendary crystal technology Atlantis. Their crystals weren't decorative. They were power generators, amplifiers, and portals of consciousness. Through them, Atlanteans tapped into the Atlantis energy grid, a vast network that connected land, sea, and sky. This grid allowed for instantaneous communication, interdimensional travel, and even the manipulation of weather patterns. But with such power came temptation. Subjects in Cannon's hypnosis sessions often described how Atlantean priests and rulers began to misuse this technology. Instead of serving the collective good, they pursued dominance, experimenting recklessly with energy fields. The result was a destabilization so severe, fractured not only their society, but the Earth itself. Some claimed the Bermuda Triangle secrets are remnants of this collapse, where ancient devices still hum beneath the ocean, occasionally interfering with modern ships and planes. Here's the chilling part. The misuse of those crystals created a karmic debt so immense that its consequences ripple across millennia. Just as individuals must face the results of their past lives, entire civilizations must eventually balance what they set in motion. Atlantis fell not because it was destined to, but because its vibration no longer aligned with harmony. That imbalance, Cannon warned, is still seeking resolution, and our modern world carries the burden of that cleansing. This is why so many of her subjects linked today's Earth changes with Atlantean energy. They described coastlines flooding not only as geological events, but as the final discharge of energies trapped in the Earth's crystalline core. The new Earth prophecy, they said, cannot emerge until these old distortions are released. In other words, what looks like catastrophe is also liberation, the planet freeing itself from the scars of misused power. Consider how this ties into our present. Humanity is once again standing at the edge of technological leaps: artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, quantum computing. And yet, without spiritual maturity, we risk repeating the same arrogance that doomed Atlantis. This is why the Consciousness Shift 2025 is so critical. It isn't just about earthquakes and floods. It's about whether we'll rise above the Atlantean, shadow, or reenact it all over again. In her later books, Cannon often said the Earth is alive and aware of this karmic cycle. The quakes, the volcanic eruptions, the rising seas, they are not punishments, but symptoms of energy grids resetting. The karmic cleansing is both physical and spiritual. The land itself must shake off what no longer serves, and humanity must choose whether to align with fear or with spiritual preparedness. Subjects in trance spoke of crystals deep beneath the Atlantic, singing as vibrations on Earth rise. Some described them as guardians, waiting for humanity to return to harmony. Others said they were like sleeping giants, stirring restlessly, their awakening causing the turbulence we call disasters. The truth, they insisted, is that these grids are neither good nor evil. They simply amplify whatever vibration dominates. If fear and greed prevail, the outcome is chaos. If love and unity prevail, the outcome is renewal. Imagine for a moment the Earth as a massive tuning fork. Atlantis once struck it violently off-key. Now, during the shift 2025, it's vibrating back into balance. That realignment shakes coastlines, floods valleys, and erupts mountains. Yes, but it also paves the way for a higher resonance, a world anchored in compassion and collective growth. And this is where the idea of vibrational frequency safety becomes more than spiritual poetry. If the Atlantis grid is amplifying whatever frequency dominates, then your personal vibration matters more than ever. Being aligned with love, repeating the mantra of the I am the calm in the storm movement, anchoring peace in the midst of upheaval, these aren't just nice sentiments. They are literal survival strategies. You become part of the frequency that stabilizes the grid rather than destabilizing it. When we connect the dots, the picture is staggering. Atlantis fell because power outpaced wisdom. Today, we are given another chance to balance that karma, to embrace technology without forgetting spirit, to hold unity stronger than division. The future Earth changes aren't random disasters. They're checkpoints in humanity's spiritual evolution, reminders of what happens when imbalance reigns. And here's the revelation almost no one discusses. The same forces that destroyed Atlantis may also hold the key to our survival. If humanity learns to work with the crystal technology Atlantis consciously, in alignment with love and harmony, those same energies could power the new Earth prophecy. The difference between catastrophe and ascension lies entirely in vibration. So when you hear about earthquakes on the West Coast or flooding across Europe, don't see only doom. See the Earth tuning itself, shaking free from Atlantean karma, preparing to rise into a frequency we've long forgotten, but desperately need to remember. Up ahead, we'll explore what these visions mean specifically for the United States, how its coasts, its heartland, and its people are positioned in this cosmic rebalancing. And what you'll discover may completely change how you view your place in the prophecy. Among all the regions described in Dolores Cannon predictions, none were as vividly detailed as the United States. Again and again, under deep hypnosis, subjects painted scenes of upheaval stretching from coast to coast. And when those images are compared to Edgar Cayce Earth changes, the overlap becomes nothing short of astonishing. It's as if the United States itself is a stage upon which the drama of the Shift 2025 is destined to unfold. Cannon sessions consistently divided the U.S. into 3 zones: the unstable West Coast, the vulnerable East Coast, and the central safe zone where survivors might gather. Each zone carried its own story, its own karmic lesson, and its own role in the unfolding New Earth prophecy. Zone 1, the West Coast on the western edge of the nation. The warnings were relentless. Subjects described a chain reaction of seismic activity, what became known as the West Coast earthquake prediction. California, long mythologized as the land of dreams, appeared again and again as a land of fractures. They spoke of San Francisco crumbling after a series of quakes, of Los Angeles battered by both tremors and rising seas, of highways split open and entire neighborhoods sliding into the Pacific. What makes this particularly striking is how closely it mirrors Cayce's vision. He warned that portions of the now West Coast will be disturbed, as if it were the breaking up of the land. Dolores Cannon's subjects echoed this word for word, often with chilling imagery of skyscrapers collapsing, bridges twisting, and millions forced inland. But the deeper meaning was always emphasized. This wasn't just geology. The West Coast, Cannon said, carries karmic energy linked to ancient civilizations that once inhabited those lands. Long before modern California, there were societies experimenting with energy, channeling forces connected to the Atlantis energy grid. The instability of the land is a mirror of unresolved energy beneath it. And here's where it gets mysterious. Several subjects spoke of lights beneath the ocean, strange pulses that seemed to trigger quakes. Could this be the reawakening of forgotten Atlantean devices? Some even connected it to modern UFO sightings off the California coast, suggesting that interdimensional forces are monitoring or even guiding the process. Whether literal or symbolic, the message was the same. The land is unstable because its energy is unfinished. Zone 2, the East Coast. If the West is fragile, the East is vulnerable to water. The East Coast flooding prophecy came through repeatedly in Cannon sessions. New York was described as a new Atlantis, its towers sticking out of the ocean like relics of a drowned world. Florida was shown fragmented, with much of its southern half erased from the map. The Carolinas and coastal New England were depicted as swallowed by sudden surges, forcing mass migrations inland. Subjects often tied this to the Bermuda Triangle secrets. They claimed crystalline structures buried deep beneath the Atlantic would be reactivated as Earth's vibration rose. These crystals, remnants of crystal technology Atlantis, would unleash powerful energy fields that destabilize weather and water alike. Imagine hurricanes magnified, tides surging without warning, coastlines dissolving under the weight of invisible forces. And once again, Case saw the same. He warned that portions of the East Coast will be disturbed, especially New York and the greater portion of the eastern seaboard, what science now calls sea level rise. These prophets called karmic release. The symbolic meaning of the East Coast's flooding is also worth noting. For centuries, it has been the hub of Western finance, politics, and media, the nerve center of systems that shaped global power. If karmic cleansing targets energies of dominance and imbalance, then the East Coast's vulnerability makes profound metaphysical sense. Zone 3, the central safe zone, and yet, amidst the warnings, there was hope. Multiple sessions described a refuge in the heart of America, the plains and the Rocky Mountains. This was the safe zone's U.S. prophecy, where survivors of coastal upheaval would gather to rebuild. Subjects saw new communities forming in states like Colorado, Montana, and the Dakotas. They spoke of rivers swelling, but not destroying, of fertile lands becoming the cradle of a new civilization. The image was not of untouched safety. There would still be challenges, but of relative stability, a place where the new Earth prophecy could take root. Cannon explained this as more than geography. The heartland vibrates differently, she said. It lacks the karmic imbalances of the coasts, serving instead as a neutral ground where humanity could reset. But she warned, only those prepared spiritually and emotionally could thrive here. The land may be stable, but without spiritual preparedness, even the safest ground becomes perilous. The bigger picture taken together, these three zones create a chilling but hopeful picture. The United States is not destined for simple destruction. It is destined for transformation. The collapse of the coasts is balanced by the rebirth of the center. The shaking of cities is countered by the gathering of communities. This is not the end of a nation, but the resetting of its role in global consciousness. And here's the mystery. While Cannon sessions painted these vivid images, they also stressed fluidity. The Consciousness Shift 2025 is not a guaranteed apocalypse. It is a fork in the road. The severity of the West Coast quakes, the extent of East Coast flooding, even the fertility of the central refuge, all of it depends on vibration. That's why subjects insisted. Fear magnetizes disaster, while love and unity anchor safety. Imagine millions repeating the mantra of the "I am the calm in the storm" movement, not as empty words, but as a collective vibration. Such a wave of calm could alter even geological outcomes, softening the blow, opening timelines of renewal instead of devastation. A personal question. So the question isn't just, will the U.S. survive? The question is, will its people rise to the occasion? Will they anchor themselves in fear, drawing chaos to them? Or will they align with compassion, turning even the heartland into a beacon of stability for the world? Because what happens in America, Cannon warned, will ripple globally. The U.S. Coast prophecy isn't just about one nation. It's about the collective psyche of humanity. When the land shifts here, the vibration shifts everywhere. And just when you think the story ends with America, remember, Europe carries its own karmic tale and its own map of transformations. While much attention is often given to the United States, Dolores Cannon predictions also contained powerful warnings about Europe. In fact, Western Europe appeared repeatedly in her late-stage sessions, echoing the chilling accuracy of the Edgar Cayce Earth changes. Together, they described a continent split between destruction and sanctuary, where karmic forces and ancient energies would play out on an epic scale during the Shift 2025. Cannon's subjects consistently divided Europe into three distinct zones. The north, marked by rising waters. The Mediterranean, shaken by fire and renewal. And the east, where mountainous regions would stand as sanctuaries. Each zone revealed not only a geographic transformation, but also a spiritual cleansing tied to the new Earth prophecy. Zone 1, the North, flooding and purification. The most dramatic imagery concerned Northern Europe. Hypnosis subjects described the Europe flooding prophecy in haunting detail. The British Isles shrinking dramatically, with large portions of England and Scotland vanishing beneath rising seas. Scandinavia, too, was shown as fractured, its coastlines gnawed away, its low-lying areas lost to sudden surges. Cities that once anchored global finance and culture were seen drowning under waves, their skylines erased in hours. This aligned precisely with Edgar Case's predictions, where he warned that the upper portion of Europe will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. For Cannon's subjects, this wasn't only about water, it was about energy. They described the North as carrying the karmic weight of centuries of conquest, colonial expansion, and industrial dominance. Flooding here symbolized not just geological upheaval, but a profound karmic cleansing of old systems of control. Imagine the imagery. Landmarks we've known for centuries: London Bridge, the fjords of Norway, the palaces of Copenhagen vanishing under turbulent seas. Yet the message was not simply destruction. Several subjects emphasized that these waters washed away stagnant energy, clearing space for renewal. The North's fall, they said, would pave the way for a rising consciousness elsewhere. Zone 2, the Mediterranean, fire, feminine energy, and renewal. If the North faced water, the Mediterranean faced fire. Over and over, subjects described volcanic eruptions: Vesuvius, Etna, and even undersea volcanoes awakening with fury. The region was portrayed as a cauldron of transformation, where coastlines would be redrawn and entire islands swallowed or born anew. But beyond the dramatic images of lava and ash lay a deeper spiritual lesson. According to Cannon's sessions, the Mediterranean carries buried feminine energy once honored in goddess traditions of Greece, Crete, and Anatolia, but suppressed under patriarchal systems. The volcanic upheaval, they said, symbolized this energy rising again. Just as lava forces its way through stone, so too would feminine wisdom resurface, unstoppable and transformative. The new Earth prophecy tied this directly to humanity's awakening. By rebalancing masculine and feminine energies, the Mediterranean's upheaval would act as a catalyst for global spiritual awakening. In other words, the fire here was not only destructive, it was creative, birthing a consciousness more aligned with unity and balance. Several subjects even spoke of undersea ruins rising briefly from the depths, fragments of forgotten civilizations, perhaps remnants of Atlantis, reminding humanity of what was lost and what must be remembered. These accounts connect directly to the Bermuda Triangle secrets and crystal technology Atlantis, suggesting that Atlantean energy grids once extended into the Mediterranean. Their reactivation, though chaotic, would serve the Earth's rebalancing. Zone 3, the East, mountain sanctuaries. In stark contrast, the east of Europe was consistently shown as a place of refuge. The Carpathian Mountains and the Ural Mountains appeared repeatedly in Cannon's sessions as sanctuaries, standing tall above floods and fires. Subjects described them as vibrational strongholds, places where the Earth's energy remained stable, even as the rest of the continent shook. This vision aligns with the safe zones U.S. prophecy in America's heartland. Just as the central U.S. becomes a cradle for new societies, so too does Eastern Europe offer a safe harbor for communities ready to rebuild. But Cannon stressed, safety here wasn't about geography alone. The true protection was vibrational. Communities aligned with love, compassion, and cooperation would thrive, while those rooted in fear or greed would still crumble. The symbolism is profound. For centuries, Eastern Europe has been overlooked, overshadowed by the power centers of the West. Yet in this prophecy, the East rises as a spiritual center, a place where the consciousness shift 2025 could be anchored into lasting structures. The spiritual message behind Europe's transformation taken together, These three zones show a Europe both shattered and reborn. The north cleansed by water, the Mediterranean rebirthed by fire, the east preserved as sanctuary. It is a cycle of destruction and renewal, perfectly mirroring the karmic cleansing process Cannon described. And once again, the parallels with Case are undeniable. His future Earth changes sketch the same outlines: northern flooding, Mediterranean upheaval, eastern safety. When two of the most respected prophetic voices echo the same vision, separated by decades, it becomes difficult to dismiss. Yet the most critical point is this: none of it is fixed. As Cannon emphasized, prophecy is not a death sentence, it's a weather forecast. The Europe flooding prophecy, the volcanic eruptions, the sanctuaries in the east, these are potential outcomes shaped by vibration. Which version unfolds depends on whether humanity embraces spiritual preparedness and raises its frequency. This is why Cannon warned her readers: fear is the real danger. If Europe's people succumb to panic, they will amplify chaos. But if they embody calm, unity, and the vibration of love, they can shift timelines. Even in zones marked for upheaval, individuals aligned with higher frequency may find themselves miraculously protected. This is the mystery of vibrational frequency safety, and it applies to Europe as much as anywhere else. Closing the European vision, so as we look to Europe's future, we must see both the danger and the invitation. Yes, floods may sweep across the north, volcanoes may roar in the south, and only mountains may stand unshaken. But behind it all lies a spiritual truth. The earth is not ending, it is rebalancing. The question is, will Europe's people cling to the old, or will they embrace the renewal? Will they drown in fear, or will they rise with the waters, awaken with the fire, and anchor in the mountains? The choice, as Cannon always reminded us, is ours. And just when you think these prophecies are only about continents, the narrative shifts again. Because at the core of all these visions lies a powerful reminder: the future isn't carved in stone, it is written in vibration. After hearing visions of quakes, floods, and fiery eruptions, it's natural to feel overwhelmed. But here is the heart of Dolores Cannon predictions, and the part most people miss: the future is not fixed. Prophecy, she insisted, is not a death sentence. It's a forecast. Like a storm warning, it tells us what might happen if conditions continue on their present course. But conditions can change. Humanity, through consciousness, always has the power to shift the outcome. This was a message Cannon repeated again and again. Even as subjects under deep trance spoke of maps redrawn and coastlines erased, they also emphasized fluidity. Timelines, they said, are malleable. What appears inevitable today can dissolve tomorrow if humanity raises its vibration. This is why she compared prophecy to weather. Yes, the clouds may gather, but through collective intention, love, and spiritual preparedness, we can soften the storm or redirect it entirely. Edgar Cayce's Earth Changes carried the same teaching. Though his words painted dramatic pictures of upheaval, he often stressed that prayer and spiritual alignment could alter the severity of events. Both seers, decades apart, reached the same conclusion: destiny is not rigid. What matters most is how we respond. This is where the Consciousness Shift 2025 becomes crucial. According to both Cayce and Cannon, we are entering a vibrational gateway. The Earth is ascending into a higher frequency, and humanity must decide whether to rise with it. If we cling to fear, greed, and separation, we amplify the turbulence of the transition. If we anchor love, unity, and compassion, we smooth the passage into the new Earth prophecy. Think of it this way: the Earth is like a symphony. Right now, some instruments are out of tune. Prophecy warns us of the dissonance. But if we tune ourselves through meditation, compassion, and alignment, we can help bring the entire orchestra back into harmony. This is the essence of vibrational frequency safety. No matter where you live, your frequency becomes your safe zone. Cannon often reminded her students that even in so-called dangerous areas, people aligned with higher vibrations could remain untouched. She told stories of individuals in war zones who survived unexplainable destruction simply because their energy shielded them. In the same way, during future Earth changes, it is not only geography that matters, it is the consciousness you carry. This is also why she supported movements like "I am the calm in the storm." These weren't just slogans. They were activations. When spoken with conviction, they became mantras that shifted vibration. Fear attracts chaos. Calm radiates safety. Imagine millions repeating this phrase. During global upheaval, the collective field itself would begin to stabilize. So, while maps may change, while coastlines may tremble, the true message is empowerment. You are not a powerless victim of prophecy. You are a participant in its unfolding. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions help decide which version of the future materializes. Here lies the paradox that makes these teachings so profound. The prophecies sound terrifying, but their purpose is to awaken courage, not fear. They remind us that every collapse carries the seed of renewal. Every flood washes away what no longer serves. Every quake breaks open the shell of an old system so something new can emerge. And here's the question Ken left us with. Will we meet the storm as victims or as co-creators? The difference between doom and rebirth lies not in tectonic plates, but in vibration. That's why the future Earth changes are not just about Earth, they are about us. So as you take in these warnings, hold this truth. The future is not written in stone. It is written in energy. And energy responds to you. Up ahead, we'll uncover the ultimate key to safety, not a place on the map, but a frequency you can carry wherever you go. After all the dramatic imagery of collapsing coasts and fiery volcanoes, this is the part of Dolores Cannon predictions that brings the greatest relief. Your safety is not ultimately determined by where you live, but by who you are, and more importantly, by the frequency you carry. Cannon's sessions revealed again and again that even in the midst of upheaval, people aligned with love and compassion stood untouched. They were not spared because of luck or coincidence, but because their vibration placed them out of reach of chaos. This is the essence of vibrational frequency safety. Think of vibration as a radio station. Fear tunes you to one channel. Love tunes you to another. If you remain tuned to fear, you will find yourself surrounded by its manifestations: panic, conflict, destruction. But if you hold steady in love, compassion, and inner peace, you align with a different channel altogether. Even if floods or quakes surround you, your experience will be transformed. Some subjects even described being invisible to danger, as though their higher frequency created a shield. This is why Cannon insisted that maps of safe zones, whether the safe zones you, as a prophecy, or the Europe flooding prophecy, were only half the story. Geography matters, yes, but it is not decisive. The true safe zone is your own consciousness. Your heart is your shelter, your frequency, your fortress. Here's where the I am the calm in the storm movement becomes more than words. It is a living practice. Every time you declare it, you affirm that your vibration is stronger than external chaos. You become an anchor for those around you, radiating stability when others fall into panic. Imagine millions of people choosing this mantra during the Shift 2025. The collective calm would ripple across the planet, softening even the harshest future Earth changes. Even Edgar Cayce's Earth Changes hinted at this truth. He stressed that prayer, meditation, and alignment with divine love were more powerful than any physical preparation. Dolores Cannon, decades later, expanded that teaching. Your vibration is your passport to the new Earth prophecy. This is the secret hidden in all the doom and gloom prophecies. They are not meant to terrify you, but to push you inward, to remind you of the power you already hold. The earthquakes, the floods, the volcanic eruptions. These are mirrors of inner transformation. The planet is ascending, and it invites you to ascend with it. The real preparation is not stockpiling supplies, but cleansing your energy, balancing your karma, and committing to spiritual preparedness. Subjects under hypnosis often describe this in striking metaphors. One said, "It's like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Around me, everything is chaos, but inside, there is silence, peace, and safety." Another described glowing with light while others ran in fear, and because of that light, no harm touched them. These weren't fanciful stories. They were blueprints, showing us how to navigate upheaval. So ask yourself, what frequency are you carrying right now? Are you tuned to fear, anger, and division? Or are you holding compassion, unity, and peace? Because that choice, made moment by moment, is your true safe zone. And here's the empowering truth. You don't need perfect meditation practices, years of study, or mystical rituals to do this. You simply need intention. Every time you choose forgiveness over resentment, love over judgment, calm over panic, you shift your frequency. And with each shift, you step closer to safety in the midst of change. Cannon's work reminds us that the Consciousness Shift 2025 is not about waiting for someone else to save us. It is about becoming the calm, becoming the love, becoming the frequency that anchors the new Earth prophecy into reality. So when you hear of earthquakes, floods, or volcanic eruptions, don't ask, "Where can I run?" Ask instead, "How can I rise?" Because the safest place is not on a map. It is inside you. And as we approach the closing of this journey, there's one final invitation, a call not only to survive, to thrive, to join a collective rising into the vibration of unity. As we reach the end of this journey through Dolores Cannon predictions, the message becomes clear. These visions were never meant to paralyze us with fear. They were meant to awaken us, to remind us that the Earth is alive, conscious, and moving into a new frequency, and that we, too, are invited into this transformation. The earthquakes, the floods, the volcanic fire, yes, they are dramatic, but they are not the real story. The real story is the rise of a new humanity. The new Earth prophecy is not about surviving disaster. It's about choosing love in the face of fear, unity in the face of division, calm in the face of chaos. That is the true spiritual awakening that both Edgar Cayce Earth Changes and Cannon sessions pointed toward. And here's the truth that ties it all together. Prophecy is a mirror. It reflects the trajectory of our vibration. If we feed fear, we empower destruction. If we feed compassion, we empower renewal. That's why your role, yes, yours, is so important. The future is not written by governments or hidden elites. It is written by the vibration of ordinary people making extraordinary choices every single day. Imagine millions of us stepping into the vibration of safety, declaring together, "I am the calm in the storm." Imagine communities anchoring light during the Shift 2025, transforming fear into strength, chaos into clarity. That collective vibration alone could soften the severity of future Earth changes and accelerate the birth of the new Earth. This is why Cannon emphasized spiritual preparedness above all. Stockpiles may help, maps may guide, but the real preparation is vibrational. It is in your heart, your mind, your soul. Your frequency is your safe zone. And when you commit to love, to unity, to forgiveness, you don't just protect yourself, you become a beacon for others. Now let's turn this message into action. If these words resonated with you, take a deep breath, feel the stillness in your heart, and write in the comments, "I am awakening with the Earth." Let that phrase become a collective declaration, a digital chorus vibrating across the planet. Your words matter. Your frequency matters. Together, they become an anchor of stability in unstable times. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Not because it helps this channel, But because staying connected means you'll continue receiving these reminders, these teachings, these prophecies framed as guides for transformation. In times like these, you don't want to face the storm alone. You want to stand with a community of awakened souls walking the same path. So let me leave you with this final thought. The Consciousness Shift 2025 is already underway. The question isn't whether the earth will change, it's whether we will rise with it. You are not powerless. You are not small. You are part of the Great Awakening, part of the vibrational chorus that determines what version of the prophecy becomes reality. The earth is speaking. Dolores Cannon listened. Edgar Cayce listened. And now it is your turn. Will you listen? Will you respond with fear or with love? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Because prophecy is not the end. It is the invitation to a new beginning.